Hey guys, glad you're here tonight. Go ahead and get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights, settle into bed, and close your eyes if you want to. If you're new here, don't forget to like the video. It really helps. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I read them all, and I love knowing where in the world you're drifting off to sleep. All right, tonight, I want you to imagine something a little different. You're going to become someone else, just for a little while. Your name is yours, but your body, your memories, your world. It's 1917, and you are a doctor, a surgeon, but not in a warm hospital. You've been sent to the front lines, not just anywhere. You are now deep in the muddy, unforgiving trenches of the Western Front, in a war that people promised would be over by Christmas, but is still dragging on and on. And tonight, you wouldn't last a day as a surgeon in the trenches of World War I. You wake to the sound of boots squelching through wet earth. The air smells of damp canvas and stale tobacco, soaked through with the scent of rot and iron. Your tent is dim. A thin, sagging sheet of green-gray cloth that does little to block the chill. You're not even sure if it's morning. The sun rarely shows itself here. Not clearly. It could be dawn or dusk. It doesn't really matter. You blink slowly. Your eyes gritty. Sleep doesn't come easily out here. And when it does, it's shallow, haunted. You push the woolen blanket from your chest. It's damp. Everything's damp. Even your skin feels soft and swollen from the constant moisture. Your coat is draped over a wooden crate nearby, your makeshift bedside table. It's a standard-issue British Army medical officer's coat. Heavy, it smells like antiseptic and blood. You put it on anyway. The buttons are stiff from dried mud. You adjust your collar, reach for your satchel, and step outside. The trench ahead yawns like a wound carved into the earth. Men shuffle past you, helmets low, eyes red from smoke and fatigue. A few nod at you as you walk. No one smiles. Not anymore. The field hospital is only a few feet away. Just another tent, slightly larger, but sagging the same. Inside, it smells of carbolic acid and something much worse. The coppery tang of blood. The cloying sweetness of infection, the reek of old sweat and fear. You breathe through your mouth, but it hardly helps. The first patient is already on the table. He arrived sometime before dawn, they tell you, caught in the leg by shrapnel. Still conscious, barely. You glance down at him. His uniform is cut open crudely. The skin around the wound is puffy, angry, pink-black. He's shaking. You nod to your assistant. Just a boy. Really? 19? Maybe. He holds the chloroform rag over the soldier's face. And slowly, the spasms quiet. You reach for the scalpel. Your fingers are already stained red from yesterday. And the day before that. You've stopped trying to wash it all away. No matter how much you scrub, the blood stays with you. The surgery is quick. Brutally so. There's no time for finesse. Only efficiency. You extract the shard of metal with long forceps. Sutures follow. Gauze. A shot of morphine if there's any left. You move on. Another man. Then another. And another. They come in waves. Sometimes from the same blast. Sometimes a sniper's work. Sometimes a gas attack. The worst ones cough black slime and reach for you with trembling fingers. Blind and afraid. You learn not to look them in the eyes too long. Not if you want to sleep, even a little. Outside, the rumble of distant artillery rolls like thunder across the broken landscape. The ground trembles beneath your boots. Sometimes the shelling comes closer, and then you all go quiet. You freeze. You listen for the whistle, that high, rising whine that means death is about to fall from the sky. Not this time. It passes. You exhale and wipe your forehead. Your sleeve comes away streaked with sweat and grime. You haven't bathed in weeks, maybe. The notion seems absurd now. You remember your first week here. You brought a small mirror, shaved, brushed your hair. That mirror is long gone, shattered by a shell, or maybe you threw it. You can't remember. Someone calls your name. You turn. It's another soldier, arms wrapped around his friend, half carrying, half dragging him forward. The injured man is clutching his side. Blood soaks his tunic. You motion for them to bring him in. As they lay him down, you notice something odd. He's singing, softly, a lullaby. German. Maybe his eyes are glassy. He thinks he's somewhere else. You check the wound. Deep, too deep. You do what you can. You always do. But you know how this ends. You know the signs. Still, you sew him up. You whisper to him, not in German, but softly. Something about home. Something gentle. He dies before midnight. You step outside for air. The cold bites at your face. The trench winds like a maze. Walls slick with mud, reinforced with rotting planks and sandbags that slump under their own weight. You light a cigarette with trembling hands. The tobacco is stale, but the heat feels good. For a moment, you just stand there, listening. Far off, a machine gun rattles. Then quiet. Your ears ring from the constant barrage of noise and silence. It never really stops, only ebbs, like a tide of chaos. You hear rats, large ones. They scurry through the boards. You've stopped being afraid of them. Sometimes you talk to them when no one else is around. Once, you saw one eating a man's face. Now you just chase them off with a muttered curse in your boot. It's morning again, or something like it. The sky is the color of ash. Clouds hang low, heavy with rain they haven't yet decided to spill. You walk past the rows of cots outside the tent, makeshift overflow beds for the wounded. Some are covered in blankets, some in sheets, folded over the faces. You try not to count them. You reach the mess line. A tin cup of weak tea, a biscuit so hard it cracks when you bite it. You chew slowly, your jaw aching. Nearby, a few soldiers are gathered around a small fire made from salvaged wood. They're passing a harmonica around. One of them plays a slow tune, something folkish, mournful, but soft. You close your eyes and listen. For a moment, just a breath. You forget where you are. Then a runner arrives. Another shelling. Casualties incoming. You finish the last sip of tea. Cold now. Drop the biscuit. You don't feel hungry anymore. Back in the tent, the stretcher arrives. A young boy. Couldn't be more than 16. You glance at the tag pinned to his collar. Faked his age to enlist. He's still alive. Barely. Shrapnel tore through his abdomen. You open your kit. Reach for the gloves. Your assistant looks at you. Tired. Afraid. You nod. And begin. The scalpel glides through flesh. Blood wells up. You mop it away with gauze. You work quickly, but not rushed. Every movement practiced, measured. He wakes briefly, his eyes wide, mouth moving. You press the chloroform to his face. He sleeps again. You continue, but the bleeding doesn't stop. There's too much damage. You do everything you can. Clamp, stitch, reposition. But you know it's no use. Still, you finish the surgery. You wrap the wound. You check his pulse. Still beating. For now, you sit beside him, watch his chest rise and fall. You hum an old song from home. Soft, unsteady. He doesn't wake, and when his breathing finally stops, you reach for the sheet, fold it gently over his face. Another name, another note in the ledger. Outside, the world keeps turning. Crows circle overhead. The sun is still hidden. The trench hums with life and fear and exhaustion. You sit on an overturned crate. Your hands ache. Your back screams. But you sit anyway, just for a minute. The wind picks up. It carries with it the smell of smoke and earth and blood. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and in the quiet between the explosions, you hear something strange, something soft, a bird, singing. You wake again, though you're unsure if you ever truly slept. The cot beneath you is stiff, canvas stretched over metal bars. It groans softly as you sit up, joints creaking like old wood in a quiet house. The tent is dim, lit only by the pale light of a lantern hung from a bent nail in the central pole. The flame inside flickers with every movement of the wind outside, casting your elongated shadow onto the canvas walls. It dances there, tall, thin, tired. You pull your boots, stiff with dried mud. The laces are knotted, cracked. They bite into your fingers as you tighten them. You don't bother with gloves. Outside, the trench is hushed. It's still dark, the world colored in deep blues and grays. You can smell the night. Damp wood, old smoke, the distant scent of gunpowder. The kind of stillness that only happens just before something breaks. You walk the boards slowly. A trickle of water runs along the edge of the trench, brown and thick with the soil of too many footfalls. It laps at your boots as you move, a slow, steady pulse. You check on the patients in the outer line first. These are the ones too stable or too far gone to stay inside the tent. One man sleeps, lips parted, breath shallow but even. His arm is bound tightly to his chest, slung with a blood-specked bandage. Another murmurs softly in his sleep. His face glistens with sweat. You reach down and gently press your palm to his forehead. Fever. You add his name to your mental list. Penicillin doesn't exist here. All you can do is clean the wound again. Apply new gauze. Hope. You glance up as the sky begins to lighten. A thin band of pale yellow splits the horizon, just above the distant shell-blasted trees. Dawn. And with it, another wave. A low whistle, then a shudder in the earth. Then another, and another. Shells. The thunder grows, blooming louder and closer in a terrible rhythm. You freeze. Every muscle tense. Then, silence. Then, the screaming. You run back into the tent. Grab your tools. Call for your assistants. They're already moving, hands shaking as they clear a space on the table. A stretcher slides in under the canvas flap, 2 soldiers dragging it with strained faces. The man on it is moaning, loud, hoarse, bleeding from the chest. His eyes roll back as he jerks violently, his body seizing. You don't ask questions. There's no time. You cut away his uniform. Your assistant wipes the blood. You clamp the artery, needle, thread, sponge. The blood just keeps coming. You press harder. Your sleeves are soaked. Your fingers slippery. You shout for more bandages. The man is choking now. Pink foam bubbles at his lips. Lung. You press your fingers to his neck. His pulse is there, fast, fading. You try. You do everything you can. And still. He goes still. The next one is missing a foot. Clean blast. Shrapnel embedded in the thigh. You cut. Extract. Sew. Bandage. He lives. Another. Burns. Face blackened and blistered. The smell is unbearable. Sweet and foul. You wash him gently. Apply salve. Whisper soft words. He cries as you cover his eyes. Later, you step outside. The light is stronger now, harsh and white. It bounces off the mud. Blinding. You squint. The fire step is crowded with men. Some smoke. Some write letters. One carves a chess piece from a bit of wood. You walk past them. They nod. Their faces are gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pale beneath layers of dirt. You reach the edge of the trench and peer over, just for a moment. The battlefield stretches before you like a torn painting. Cratered earth, dead trees like blackened bones, barbed wire tangled in grotesque spirals. You smell the rot. There are bodies out there, some fresh, some old, some buried in mud, only boots or hands visible. You step back down, lean against the sandbags, and for the first time that day, you let yourself cry. Just a little, just enough. You remember your first year in medical school, the clean lecture halls, the polished instruments, the scent of parchment and ink and pipe tobacco from your professors. You remember the day war broke out. how the papers were full of glory and patriotism. You remember the train to the front, how the countryside changed, greens to browns, fields to trenches. You remember telling yourself you would save lives. You do, sometimes, but more often, you are simply the last person they see. Evening settles slowly. The sun drops below the trees, casting long shadows across the trench. Lanterns are lit. The glow is golden, flickering, almost peaceful. You sit by a soldier's bed. He's old, older than most, 35, maybe. He has a photo in his hand. A woman, 2 children. You ask their names. He tells you. His voice is thin. You ask where he's from. He tells you. You nod. You pretend you know the place. He asks if he'll be all right. You don't answer. You hold his hand until he falls asleep. You don't leave. Not yet. You sit there in silence, listening to his breath, listening to the soft murmurs of the wounded, listening to the quiet hum of death as it passes through the tent, patient and sure. Later, you return to your cot. The canvas sags slightly beneath your weight. You lie back, stare at the ceiling. Your hands are stained. Your eyes ache. Your heart is heavy. You turn to one side, close your eyes, and hope the dreams are kind tonight. You're awake before the bugle sounds. The dark clings to the trench like a second skin, heavy and wet. Mist coils through the air like breath from a dying giant. You sit up slowly, your joints groaning louder than your voice has in days. The ache is everywhere now, shoulders, lower back, behind your eyes. You listen, not to anything specific, but to the absence of explosions. It's quiet, almost gentle. A rat scurries past your boot. You don't flinch. They're everywhere here. Huge, fat things that feast on rations, refuse, and the dead. You once tried to keep them out of the medical tent. Now, you just brush them aside like a breeze. You splash your face with cold water from a tin basin. It's murky and smells faintly of iodine and mildew. Still, it's the cleanest thing you'll touch all day. You walk back into the tent and check the rows. Bandages need changing. Dressings are soaked. Some patients moan quietly and sleep. Others are already awake, staring at nothing with hollow eyes. You touch each one gently as you pass. Not for diagnosis, just so they know you're real. A young boy sits up on one of the stretchers. He's barely older than 16, eyes wide in a face that hasn't finished growing. He lost 3 fingers yesterday to a grenade fragment. You remember how he screamed during the amputation. Now, he just looks at his hand like it's not his. You kneel down next to him. He asks if you think it will grow back. You don't lie. He nods, then quietly turns his face away. You wrap his bandage tighter. You don't tell him the nerves will burn phantom hot for years. Another soldier is wheeled in. Stretcher bearers groan under the weight. He's large, muscular, must have been a farmhand. The left side of his skull is open. You don't need to look long to know. You prepare the morphine. More for peace than pain. He grabs your sleeve suddenly, bloodied fingers tight. He whispers something in a language you don't recognize. His breath smells like rust. You stay with him until his grip loosens, until his eyes stop searching. You close them with your fingers and move to the next. Time slips strangely here. One moment, you're threading a needle. The next, someone is screaming in the distance. Then you're wrapping gauze. Then someone vomits blood. Then you're washing your hands. But the basin fills red faster than you can drain it. You forget to eat. There's bread somewhere. Biscuits. Canned beef you haven't opened. You chew a piece of hardtack between surgeries. Your jaw aches from it. You swallow without tasting. At some point, you leave the tent and walk up to the surface again. Sunlight filters through the smoke in thin, golden spears. Dust motes hang in the air, undisturbed. The trench is quieter than usual. You spot a soldier sitting with his back to the wall, a harmonica in hand. He plays something slow, off-key but full of soul. It echoes through the trench like a lullaby for the damned. You sit beside him. He doesn't stop playing. You don't ask questions. The music fills the space between the shelves. It feels human. For a moment, that's enough. A messenger brings word. New shelling expected tonight. Heavy. You nod. Your hands clench by reflex. You check your supplies. Morphine. Not enough. Gauze. Running low. Antiseptic. Almost gone. You write a note to command requesting more. It won't arrive in time. Night falls fast here. 1 minute the sky is bruised blue. The next, it's velvet black. The smell of cordite lingers in the air. The ground shivers under your feet. You count. 1, 2, 3, 4. The explosion lands farther away. You relax, slightly, then you hear it. That terrible call. Stretcher. Your heart kicks. You run. Another boy. Of course, always the young ones. His abdomen is torn. You can see part of his intestine. He's still conscious. His teeth are red with blood. You speak softly as you work. Ask him his name. Ask where he's from. He tries to answer, but all that comes is blood. You cut quickly, clamp what you can. So, with trembling hands, he passes out halfway through. You finish anyway. He'll need warmth. He'll need luck. You can offer neither, but you sit with him until your hands stop shaking. Your shift ends, but you don't stop. No one does. Sleep is rationed in half-hour bites, doled out like medicine. You lie down beside the tent wall. The canvas above you ripples in the wind. You can hear rats scratching under the boards. A man nearby moans in his sleep. Another one cries softly, calling for his mother. You stare at the ceiling. Your eyes burn. You think of the garden behind your childhood home. How the earth smelled in spring. How your mother used to call you in for supper. How the grass felt cool beneath your bare feet. You hold that memory tight. And finally, you drift off. You wake in darkness. A scream slices the air, ragged and wild. Your body reacts before your mind fully returns. You're on your feet, boots thudding on duckboards, reaching for your kit. Inside the tent, the air is dense with heat and panic. A man thrashes on the table, blood soaking through his bandages, teeth clenched so hard you're afraid they'll break. You recognize him. Shrapnel in the thigh yesterday. You'd cleaned and stitched it. You'd even thought he might walk again. But now the leg is swollen, purple, streaked with red. Fever burns off him like fire. His skin shines wet and pale in the lamplight. Gas gangrene. You whisper the words under your breath. Barely audible. Your assistants are already preparing the tools. Amputation. He won't survive without it. He might not survive with it either. You grasp his hand and look into his eyes. You speak softly, slowly. He nods, barely, trembling. You pour whiskey into his mouth, then morphine, then ether. His eyes flutter closed. The saw is heavier than you remember. The blade bites quickly, and you steady your breath as you begin to cut. You count the strokes in your mind, each one steady, deliberate. Not because it helps, but because it keeps you from shaking. The smell is sharp, hot iron and blood and rot. Your apron is soaked again. The lantern flickers. The assistants work in silence, eyes fixed and hollow. When it's done, you tie off the stump. You breathe, finally, deeply, and set the saw down with a soft clink on the tray. He lives, for now. You close your eyes for just a moment, listening to the quiet drip of blood into the basin. Later, you step outside for air. The cold slaps your face with the sting of winter. Snow falls in delicate flakes, almost beautiful against the wire and ruin. The trench is quiet. Men huddle under blankets, steam curling from their mouths as they mutter softly in their sleep. You move past them like a ghost. You find a dry patch near the latrine wall, sit, and let your head fall into your hands. Your gloves are stiff with dried blood. You don't remember putting them on. Your fingers ache. Your wrists burn. Your soul feels hollow. You hear birds, just a few, far away. The war hasn't scared them all off. They sound impossibly gentle in this place. You remember a time you used to rise early just to walk in the fog and listen to the morning calls. Before all of this, you don't cry. You can't. There's nothing left in you to spill. So you stand, straighten your coat, and go back in. Morning is slower than usual. The wounded trickle in one by one instead of by the dozen. The men joke about it. They say maybe the war's tired too. You smile thinly, but you know better. It's just the silence before the next storm. Still, you allow yourself this moment of pause. You eat actual food, a biscuit, slightly soft, a strip of preserved bacon, a tin of jam, sweet and startling on your tongue. You savor it. Not because it's delicious, because it isn't, but because it's normal. It reminds you of kitchens and tables and mornings where people read newspapers instead of casualty lists. A soldier comes in with a splintered forearm. You treat him while he talks about his dog. You nod and smile as he describes the way it used to chase birds and roll in grass. When you're done, you give him a hard candy from your coat pocket. He grins like a child. You remember his face. You will remember it even after the war, even after the world forgets what he did here. Another man arrives with burns across half his chest. He was too close to a munitions dump when a shell hit. You peel away the melted fabric. His skin comes with it. He groans, but doesn't fight. You clean, wrap, whisper. You tell him he'll be all right. He won't be, but you say it anyway. Afternoon brings another delivery of bodies. Alive, but barely. You don't stop moving for hours. Stitch, wrap, stabilize, repeat. One of the new boys keeps asking for his brother. He thinks you're his mother. You don't correct him. You sit with him until the morphine does its work. You tuck the blanket under his chin. You keep your hand on his arm until his breathing slows. When night falls again, it's colder. Your breath clouds in front of you. The candlelight dances in the corners of the tent. You've taken off your coat, rolled up your sleeves. Your forearms are streaked with blood and iodine. Your back is stiff. Your stomach growls. Ignored. You patch one more wound. Then another, until your hands no longer respond with precision, and your head begins to tilt forward between tasks. Only then do you stop. You find a corner, curl into it, and close your eyes. The last thing you hear before sleep, a distant boom, a rattle of boots, and somewhere, a soft, off-key whistle from a lonely soldier trying to remember how songs used to sound before war. You wake again before sunrise. The canvas above your cot ripples faintly in the wind, and the damp chill in your bones tells you it rained during the night. You sit up slowly, body aching in all the usual places. Your boots are still on. You haven't taken them off in 2 days. You stretch your fingers. They're stiff, swollen at the knuckles. The kind of pain that comes from too many hours holding scalpels, clamps, bandage shears. You light a small lamp. It glows weakly in the murk. The tent smells of sweat, mildew, and dried blood. Someone coughs violently nearby. You move toward the sound, adjusting your coat. It's Private McNeil, pale, clammy, shaking. Trench fever. You feel his pulse. It gallops under your fingers. You place a cool cloth on his forehead and whisper something reassuring. He grips your wrist, his eyes wide. "Promise me," he says, voice thin. "Promise you won't let me die out here." You don't make promises anymore, but you squeeze his hand. That's enough for him. Outside, the trench is still. Snow has dusted the duckboards, softening the jagged angles of the world. You walk slowly, stepping over slush and shattered crates. The horizon is gray and empty, like a page waiting to be torn. Someone hands you a mug of tea, lukewarm and weak, but it warms your hands. You sip, grateful for the bitter sting of tannin and tin. You lean against the wall, staring up at the sky. It almost looks peaceful. A lull in the shelling means a flood of cases soon. It always works like that. The quiet is the warning. The first stretcher arrives before breakfast. A young corporal, covered in mud. His foot is gone, blown away by a mortar that didn't finish the job. He's lost too much blood. You press dressings into the wound, tighten a tourniquet, and inject him with morphine. He's shivering, talking nonsense. You recognize the look. He won't last the hour. Still, you sit with him. You talk about things you both pretend to remember. Spring days, quiet mornings, hot soup and open fields. He smiles through cracked lips. When he stops breathing, his eyes remain open, frozen in that impossible, fragile smile. You close them. You whisper a name you don't know, just so he's not alone. A rush comes just before noon. 3 men carried in at once. Gas victims. You scramble to soak rags in vinegar and press them to their faces. But it's already too late for one. His lungs are drowning from the inside, eyes wide with terror, chest heaving like a fish on a dock. You hold his head in your lap, stroking sweat-slick hair. You tell him he's safe. Tell him it's over. He dies choking, face twisted in pain. You wipe your sleeve across your mouth, the acidic smell clinging to your throat. You've stopped counting the dead, but they still take space in your memory, tiny graves dug behind your ribs. Another soldier arrives, groaning in pain, one eye swollen shut. He clutches his chest. You cut away his uniform, hands moving by instinct. Rib fracture, possible punctured lung. You insert a needle to relieve the pressure. It works. His breathing slows. He thanks you in a voice so soft it barely exists. You write his name on a scrap of paper and pin it to his blanket. You forget the names of most, but you want to try today, even if it won't matter, even if no one remembers him but you. The hours pass in a blur. Blood, bandages, the soft rasp of metal instruments on enamel trays, the dull, constant hum of pain. You wash your hands 100 times, but they never feel clean. You pause only once, to sip water and swallow a hard biscuit. It tastes like sawdust. Your stomach turns, but you keep going. You have to. There's always another patient, always another wound. You don't ask how long it's been since you last slept properly. You don't want to know. Night comes again, sudden and smothering. The temperature drops. Your breath fogs in front of you. A fire smolders in a dented barrel near the dugout, and a few soldiers huddle around it, trading cigarettes and ghost stories. You pass them on your way to the casualty tent. Inside, a lamp flickers. A man lies unconscious on the table, leg shattered and partially amputated. You recognize your own stitching. You finished this operation 20 hours ago. He hasn't woken since. You check his pulse. Faint but steady. You sit beside him, just for a moment, just to rest. You close your eyes. Behind them, flashes of memory. A face screaming, a hand reaching, blood, mud, a child's voice calling from the dark. You open them again. The tent hasn't changed, but the world inside you has cracked. And still, the war asks for more. So you rise. One more round, one more body, one more night. The next morning begins not with wounded, but with orders. A messenger appears just after sunrise. Mud on his coat, urgency in his voice. The colonel wants you forward. A push is coming. They expect heavy losses. Field stations won't be enough. You're needed up there with them. You stare at the man for a moment too long. The coffee in your tin goes cold. No time to think. You pack your satchel. Bandages, clamps, morphine, gloves, a few glass vials that rattle faintly when you move. You wrap your fingers around the worn leather strap and sling it over your shoulder. They hand you a helmet. It doesn't fit right. You haven't worn one in weeks. The straps itch your neck. You move with the company through the communication trenches, narrow cuts in the earth that wind like veins toward the front. Barbed wire coils at your feet. Water sloshes around your boots. It smells of rot and gun oil. The soldiers glance at you, some with curiosity, some with pity. A doctor this far forward? Most don't ask questions. They're too busy watching the sky, listening for the distant thump of mortars, checking their rifles, whispering prayers. One of them, a young private with freckles and trembling fingers, offers you a strip of jerky. You take it, even though you can't chew. Your jaw aches with tension. He says his name is Ellis. You nod. Try to remember. You may have to save him, or bury him. You reach the jump-off trench by mid-afternoon. It's just ahead of the true front line, a crooked scar in the earth that trembles with every distant shell. You crouch low, breathing through your mouth. The mud here is deeper, stickier, more alive. It sucks at your boots with every step, like it wants to keep you. They set up a small tarp nearby, makeshift cover for what will soon be your station. It's barely large enough to stand in. You kneel instead, arranging what little you brought. Tourniquets, scissors, cotton swabs, a small roll of gauze. It's all you have. A man jokes. Hope you brought a miracle in that bag. You don't answer, but part of you wishes you had. The first barrage comes as the sun sinks low. The sky flashes white, then red. The roar is enormous, like mountains splitting apart. Earth erupts ahead of you. Men scream. Metal shrieks. You curl into yourself, instinct pulling your helmet down. Mud showers your station. Dirt clogs your ears. When it stops, there's no silence. Only ringing and moaning. The first casualty stumbles into view, blood soaking one leg, face gray with shock. He collapses inches from your boots. You drag him under the tarp. Your hands move by instinct. You tear his trousers, find the source of bleeding, clamp, wrap, inject morphine, apply pressure. You say nothing. There's no time. More follow. A man missing fingers, another burned across the face. A boy, no more than 16, sobbing as he holds his stomach, where the shrapnel caught him. You want to scream, but you don't. You work. That's what you're here for. Night falls. You're still there, crouched under your tarp, sleeves soaked in blood, knees sunk deep into muck. You can't feel your toes. A flare arcs overhead, casting pale light across no man's land. The battlefield looks like the surface of another planet. Craters, smoke, bodies motionless in impossible shapes. You try not to look. You focus on the living. There's a sergeant with a gash down his back, crawling toward you on elbows. You meet him halfway, kneel in the dirt, and cut through his uniform. He winces but doesn't cry out. You admire that. You stitch in the dark, hands guided by memory more than sight. His breath smells of blood and biscuits. He says, "Don't let me die out here, Doc." You press your hand to his shoulder. "Not tonight." You whisper. He nods. That's enough for him. Just before dawn, a runner reaches you. The forward position is falling. Too many wounded. Not enough hands. They need a medic past the wire. You stare at the boy delivering the message. He's shaking, eyes wide. "No time," he says. You grab your bag. What's left of it? You follow him into the unknown. You cross the top, out of the trench, into no man's land. It's madness, mud and smoke and bodies. Bullets buzz overhead. You keep your head low. You stumble over roots, wire, broken rifles. You nearly fall into a crater, the stench of death rising like heat. And then you reach them. A collapsed forward post, timbers smashed, men scattered across the ground like leaves after a storm. You drop beside the first one who groans. You roll him gently, whispering, feeling for wounds. You cut, you wrap, you pray, silently and feverishly, that the morphine holds, that the bleeding stops. You move to the next, and the next. Your hands are shaking, but they don't stop. Not yet. Not until you've done what you came to do. The sun rises slow and pale, a cold yolk breaking behind a curtain of smoke. You blink against the light, crouched in a hole that was once a trench. Half the wall has collapsed. Mud cakes your boots, your sleeves, your face. Blood has dried into your knuckles like rust. Around you, the wounded groan softly. A few stir. Most don't. You don't remember falling asleep. Maybe you never did. Your body simply shut off for a while, like a lantern run dry. You move stiffly, checking pulses, adjusting bandages. One man's eyes have gone glassy. You close them with 2 fingers and whisper, "Rest now." There's no time for ceremony. But you still give him something, even just a whisper. A lieutenant appears around mid-morning, breathless, helmet dented, sleeve shredded to ribbons. "We've got Germans flanking east," he says, too loud. "We're pulling out." You nod. You were expecting it. You always are. But then he adds something you weren't expecting. "You're going with the 2nd unit. Behind enemy lines." You stare. He hands you a scrap of paper. Orders. "You're to assist with a covert station in the woods, past Hill 60. They're losing men fast out there. They need someone who won't panic. Someone who knows how to work without light, without help, without hope. Someone like you. You don't argue. You gather your bag again, now lighter than ever. You pocket the last of your morphine, tie a fresh bandage around your wrist, and follow. The group moves fast. 10 men, 2 stretchers, a mule that won't stop snorting. You travel through thickets of broken branches and wire, past burnt-out trees that look like blackened fingers clawing at the sky. You try not to think about where you are, past the front, behind the lines, where bullets come from both directions. The wind howls through splintered bark. Your breath fogs. Snow begins to fall again, quiet and cruel. By dusk, you reach it. The station is barely more than a lean-to. Tarps nailed to trees, crates stacked for walls. Inside, a corporal lies screaming on a bed of straw. His leg is shattered. You roll up your sleeves and go to work. There's no heat, no lamp, just a candle flickering in a bottle. You cut fabric, sew flesh, pour iodine that makes the man howl. He grips your coat and begs you to stop. You don't. You never do. But when it's done, when the leg is bound, the blood is staunched, and he lies breathing instead of choking, you sit back, and you let yourself feel the cold again. It rushes in like floodwater. That night, the shelling returns. Closer now, the trees shake with each distant burst. Snow falls in trembling cascades from the branches. You cover your ears, eyes wide. The others huddle in silence. No fire, no sound. You wrap yourself in your coat and try to sleep sitting upright, your back against a tree, boots buried in mud. You dream of hands, dozens of them, clutching at your sleeves, tugging at your bag, begging. You have nothing left to give. But still, they pull. Morning brings silence, and then footsteps. Not friendly, Germans. You hear them crunching through the woods, speaking low and quick. The sergeant gestures. The men scatter. You're pushed behind the lean-to. Your heart is in your throat. You crouch, trembling, behind a crate. The satchel at your side feels impossibly loud. Every vial, every clamp, a betrayal. The voices come closer, then stop. You hold your breath so long your lungs burn. One of the Germans laughs. Boots shuffle, then silence again. Eventually, the crunch of snow recedes. You don't exhale until your knees give out. You collapse in the dirt, shaking. You are a surgeon, not a soldier, but here, those roles blur. Everyone fights something. That afternoon, a man is brought in, coughing blood, shot in the side. He's young, maybe 19. He stares at you with tears in his eyes. "I don't want to die," he says in French accented English. You smile gently. You lie better than you used to. No one dies today. It takes an hour, 2. You're not sure. Your hands are numb by the end. But the bleeding slows. The boy breathes easier. He smiles. And for once, it's not a goodbye. Later, The sergeant pulls you aside. New orders. Pull out tonight. Too hot. Too dangerous. They'll move west, back toward the lines. But not everyone can walk. You look at the wounded. 3 of them. 1 unconscious. You do the math. Then, you volunteer. I'll stay with them. Wait for the next patrol. The sergeant hesitates, then nods. And just like that, the soldiers are gone. You are alone. 4 bodies under a crooked tarp in enemy woods. Snow falling like silence, a pistol in your coat, and a promise to keep them alive. You stay awake through the night. There's no fire, no singing, no light, only breath and cold and the endless stretch of dark. The 3 wounded stir in their makeshift beds, drifting in and out of shallow sleep. You keep your coat wrapped tight, hands tucked under your arms, sitting just outside the tarp with your back to a tree. Every sound sharpens your spine, a twig snapping, a bird's cry, a gust of wind through the boughs above. You think about how quiet death must be. Not like the trenches, not like the screaming and fire, but something slower, gentler. Yeah, you shake the thought away. You're here for them, to keep them warm, to keep them breathing. One man starts coughing again, wet and ragged. You crawl back under the tarp, your knees stiff. You press a damp cloth to his lips. He clutches your wrist in the dark. Is it morning? He whispers. You lie again. Soon. You don't remember falling asleep. But when your eyes open, the woods are a pale gray. Mist clings low across the forest floor, curling around roots and boots. One of the men is awake. The French boy, the one you stitched yesterday. He's humming something under his breath. A lullaby, maybe. You almost don't want to speak, but you do. How's the pain? He shrugs, winces. I can see the sky, he says. That's enough. You smile, faintly. It's strange how easily hope lingers in young men. Even when they're bleeding. Around midday, you hear footsteps. Soft, measured, not rushing, not shouting. You reach for the pistol in your coat. Your fingers tremble around the grip. But then, a whisper in English. Don't shoot. You exhale, slow and sharp. It's a scout patrol, yours. 2 men in mismatched gear, faces smeared with ash, eyes scanning the tree line like hunters. When they see the wounded, they curse softly. Hell of a miracle they're still breathing. You nod. You don't tell them what it cost. They radio back. Evac's coming. 3 hours, maybe 4. The scout hands you half a biscuit and a canteen. You eat in silence, jaw stiff. The food tastes like gravel, but your hands are steady again. The wait is the worst part. Time slows. The wounded groan in waves, fevered and restless. You wet their lips, check their wounds, whisper names just to remind them they're not alone. The sky darkens slowly, clouds gathering again, more snow. You wrap your coat tighter and curl into the corner of the tarp, counting your breath to stay awake. Then, a crack, not a twig, a rifle, close, another, shouts in German. Your body reacts before your mind does. You drag one wounded man deeper into the woods, teeth clenched, muscles screaming. The French boy tries to rise, falls back with a moan. You crouch beside him, pistol drawn. You have 6 bullets, maybe 7. You've never fired it before, but your hand stays steady. The trees ripple with noise. And then, silence again. Your breath clouds the air, and you wait. Minutes pass, an hour. You don't know. Eventually, boots, crunching softly. A voice. Doc? Your heart stutters. But it's English, not a patrol, the evac team. You cry, just once. A quiet, stuttering sound into your sleeve. Then you rise. You guide the stretcher teams to the wounded, one by one. You help lift them, whisper to them, tell them they're going home. You don't know if it's true, but it feels like it. You walk with them back toward the line. Each step pulls at your spine. Your knees threaten to give, but you don't stop. Not while they're beside you, not while you're still standing. Snowflakes catching your lashes. The trees part, and there it is again, the world of mud and metal and blood. The trenches, home. When you return to your aid station, the other doctors blink at you like you're a ghost. One of them hands you coffee. Another touches your shoulder. Didn't think we'd see you again. You nod. You don't answer. You sit. You sip. The warmth moves through your fingers like light. Your bag lies at your side, stained and battered. Still whole, still enough. You close your eyes, and for the first time in days, you sleep without dreaming. You awake to the smell of antiseptic and something sharper, iron and bleach. Your head throbs beneath the bandages wrapped tightly around your temple. You don't remember how you got here. The tent is dim, the low murmur of voices moving in the background like a distant tide. You try to move, but a sharp pain stops you, a deep, aching burn along your ribs. A nurse notices your eyes flutter and approaches quietly. "Easy," she says softly. "You're safe, doctor. Safe." The word feels strange. You want to ask what happened, but your throat is dry and sore. Instead, you close your eyes and listen. The voices around you talk of losses, of men who didn't make it back. You try to imagine their faces, but they blur behind a fog of exhaustion. One of the other doctors comes in, eyes heavy, face grim. He sits beside you and sighs. "They found you out there," he says. "Your patrol was ambushed." You nod slowly, memories flashing. The crack of rifles, the cold, the fear, the weight of wounded in your arms. "How many?" You whisper. He looks away. "Most of them didn't make it." You lie back, the weight of that settling on your chest. You had fought so hard to keep them alive, but the war takes what it wants. No matter the hands, no matter the prayers, you hear distant thunder, not from artillery, but from storms rolling in. Outside, the world keeps burning. Inside, the quiet settles like a shroud. You wonder how many days you have left to stand, how many lives you can save before you become just another lost shadow in the trenches. The nurse adjusts your blanket and whispers, "Rest now." You close your eyes. The darkness feels like both an escape and a prison. Outside, the wind moans over the mud, and somewhere far away, a single rifle fires once, then silence.